We're going to talk about inequalities. Up here we have x is greater than 5. What that's saying, or what that means, is that all values of x are greater than 5. So if our job is to graph that, we graph this on a number line, and you have to decide whether you're going to put what's called an open circle on 5 or what's called a closed circle on 5. Open circle is not filled in, closed circle is filled in. Now, since that says x is greater than 5, we're going to put an open circle not filled in on 5, and the arrow and the line are going to go to the right. Now, what's the difference between open circle and closed circle? The open circle means the value of x does not include that number that open circle is on. If it was a closed circle, the value of x, or the value of the variable, would include that number that circle is on. And when that closed circle would come into play is when you have the equal to sign with it. So let's say this was x is greater than or equal to 5. Then you would put a closed circle on 5, and the arrow would still go to the right. So for this, open circle on 5, arrow goes to the right. That is the value of x. Next, we have x is greater than or equal to negative 3. So this is saying that x could be greater than negative 3, or it could also be equal to negative 3. So if x is greater than or equal to negative 3, to graph this, we're going to now put a closed circle on negative 3. That means filled in. And what that means is that the value of x does include negative 3. Compared to this one up here where x did not include 5, x does include negative 3. So we fill that circle in because the equal to sign with it. And then the arrow is going to the right. So all x values are greater than or equal to negative 3. This line, this arrow, represents the value of x. If we have x is less than 0, that's saying that all values of x are less than 0. So if we're to graph this, first choice is, do you put an open circle or a closed circle? And then the second choice is, which way does the arrow go, left or right? So open circle or closed circle depends on the sign. Since you just have a less than sign with no equal to sign with it, that means that x does not include 0. And then the arrow to the left or to the right, just do what it says. It says x is less than 0. X is anything to the left of 0. X is less than 0. Does not include 0, but it's anything less than 0. So any number on this line could be the value of x in that inequality. If we have x is less than or equal to 9, it means x could be 9 or anything less than 9. So x is any value less than or equal to 9. So since it could be 9, when we're graphing this, we're going to put a closed circle on 9. That means this circle is filled in. And since it's less than or equal to 9, our arrow goes to the left. X is any number less than 9, but it could also be 9. Now, when graphing inequalities, a couple points of confusion would be whether you use a closed circle or open circle. And the second point of confusion would be which way does the arrow go, left or right. So open circle or closed circle, all depends on the sign, the inequality sign. If you just have a less than or just a greater than, it's an open circle. That means the inequality or the solution set does not include that number that is on. If it's a closed circle, that means the inequality, such as this one here, x is less than or equal to 9, does include the number that closed circle is on. So if you have an equal to sign with it, you're filling in or closing the circle. If you just have a less than or just a greater than sign, the circle stays open. Now, which way does the arrow go, left or right? Some people get confused on that. One trick, if you have trouble with numbers and you can't read it and know which way the arrow goes, one trick is that the arrow is going to point in the direction of the inequality sign if the variable is listed first. So if you're starting off with x, then is less than or equal to 9, that arrow is going to point in that direction of that inequality. But let's say we had that flipped around. Let's say it was 9 is greater than or equal to x, which would be the same thing, just flipped around in order. So if you have 9 is greater than or equal to x, so it's the same inequality, but if that was greater than or equal to, it would be pointing in this direction. So the trick is the variable has to be listed first, then the arrow is going to point in the direction of the inequality, only if the variable is listed first as you're reading it from left to right. Going to write an inequality from this sentence. 5 fewer than a number is at least 12. Well, 5 fewer than a number, you take that as one thing. Then is at least 12, you would take that as another thing. So 5 fewer than a number. Let's say your number was x. 5 fewer than x would be x minus 5. Is at least 12. This is not equal to. We're not putting an equal to sign down. We have to figure out what inequality means at least. So if it's at least 12, that means it could be 12 or anything greater than 12. Once again, 5 fewer than a number, that's x minus 5, is at least 12 means it's greater than or equal to 12. It could be 12 or anything greater than 12. Greater than or equal to 12. Next, the quotient of a number in 3 is no more than 14. So the quotient of a number in 3, we're going to take that as one thing. And then is no more than 14, we'll take that as another thing. Quotient means divide. So when that says the quotient of a number in 3, again, if you're using x, you could write that as x over 3 or x divided by 3. Is no more than 14. You have to figure out an inequality sign that means is no more than 14. So that means it could be 14, but it could also be anything less than 14 because it's not more than 14. So it could be 14 or anything less than that. So the quotient of a number in 3 would be written as x over 3 or x divided by 3. Is no more than 14 means it's less than or equal to 14. It could be 14 or anything less than that. Also, the order of division, so this x over 3, that order does matter. You can't have 3 over x. It's not the same thing. The quotient of a number in 3, you're going to write that in the order of x divided by 3. So x over 3 is less than or equal to 14. Going to take the product of a number in 4 is at most negative 10, and we're going to write that as an inequality. So the product of a number in 4, we'll do that first, and then is at most negative 10, we'll do that second. Product means multiply. So the product of a number in 4, you would write that, if you're using x, you would write that as 4x. Then is at most negative 10. You have to figure out an inequality sign that means at most. So if it's at most negative 10, that means it could be negative 10, but it could also be anything less than negative 10. So it's not more than negative 10. It's negative 10 or anything less than that. So the product of a number in 4 would be, in this case 4y, is less than or equal to negative 10. So it could be negative 10 or anything less than that. In other words, less than or equal to. 4y is less than or equal to negative 10. Six more than a quotient of a number in 3 is greater than 14. Now, got a lot going on here. 6 more than a quotient of a number in 3. So the quotient of a number in 3, if you're using x, that'd be written as x over 3 or x divided by 3. But we also have to take into account 6 more than that. So we're going to add 6 to that. Is greater than 14. That's an easy one. So more than indicates addition, or you're going to add. Quotient means divide. And then is greater than 14. That's the easy part. That's just going to be the greater than symbol and then a 14. So in this time we're using z. The quotient of a number in 3, that is the z over 3. 6 more than that would be adding 6 onto it. And then the easy part is greater than 14. Z over 3 plus 6 is greater than 14. Again, order of division does matter. You cannot write that as 3 over z. It has to be written as z over 3 plus 6 is greater than 14.